So as Doctor Who Series 9 is airing right now, I'm going to totally ignore that Peter Capaldi is doing a wonderful job, and I'm going to step away from that and take a look at some more Colin Baker, because it's been about a month since I've done a whole Colin Baker dedicated video, and quite frankly, I can't go another week without doing one. So today I'm going to be reviewing one of the new Big Finish audios that I, quite frankly, am now addicted to, and you're going to end up killing my bank account, Big Finish, because I bloody adore you. Hello YouTube, and welcome to another Doctor Who video. Now recently I've been reviewing Doctor Who Series 9. Finally I'm going away from that for a bit and taking a look at the wonderful Colin Baker. As it's been about a month since I've done a whole video dedicated to Colin, so I think it's about time we do another one. Today I'm going to be reviewing the monthly range episode 204, Criss Cross, which is a part of the monthly range, and it's actually quite a new pivotal point for the 6th Doctor, as it's sort of a beginning of a new era. This episode is written by Matt Fitton, which is responsible for an episode on this one called Stage Fright, which if you've not seen this reviewed already, this is possibly one of the best things I've ever bought. I love it to pieces. But he was responsible for Stage Fright, one of my most favourite, I can't even make it into words, one of my most favourite 6th Doctor episodes of all time. So I went into this episode with very, very high expectations. So as I said, this episode is actually quite a pivotal point in the 6th Doctor era, as I believe we've said goodbye to Flip for a while. I don't actually know what happened last time with Flip, as I've not got to that point yet. But we have Miranda Rayson playing the companion Constance Clark. Now, as I previously mentioned, I did review the Last Adventures box set, which featured a story called End of the Line, which did in fact have Constance Clark in the episode, so theoretically we had a companion story with a companion that hadn't even been introduced yet, and this is the introduction story. Now, in that review I did actually say that I was rather interested in her character. I liked the general difference in her character and other characters. I thought that she was very powerful in a way. I thought that she had a different role to play from the other companions that we've had in the past, and I just generally quite liked her. I thought that she was one of the most standout characters from that box set. Then we had Flip as well, which I absolutely adore Flip. Now, as I said, this is Criss Cross, and it's set in World War II in Bletchley Park, and to be honest, I'm very, very surprised that this hasn't been done already, because I think it's pretty much a perfect start for a Doctor Who story. Now, first off, it is actually quite a nice little story, as it is sort of the anniversary celebrations going on at the moment for World War. I don't know if that was what inspired the setting of this story, but it's quite a nice little coincidence, even if it wasn't. So first off, I'm going to go on to the characters and things in this episode. So we have Colin Baker playing the 6th Doctor, which I'm sure you know I'm all going to say, and it's not even lies, it is general opinion here. He was brilliant. He was on top form there. There's not been one 6th Doctor episode that I've actually listened to yet where I felt that Colin has underperformed. I think that I definitely like the way that he had a bit of a leadership in this episode. At the very start of the episode, he was playing a character called Dr. Smith. Now, he was sort of in Bletchley Park, and it was, in a way, he was quite a high authority person, as he got in by using some high authority things by a certain somebody, most likely Winston Churchill. It wasn't actually referred to of who it was, but we can guess that it was Winston Churchill, and that's how he got in. See, a nice little reference there to Winston Churchill, as that has been seen in the new series as well. But I think that Colin definitely set him well in this episode, as his Doctor does quite like a lot of power, and I think that in this episode he had the control over quite a lot of people in Bletchley Park, which is sort of working very well for his Doctor, I think. In the actual cover, he's in sort of a bow tie and a jacket and things, looking very World War II-ish, which I do really like, actually. I think that that definitely worked well for the story, and it was just generally nice to see a Doctor settle down in one place for a bit, which was very interesting, because I believe he was tracking the golden eggs and the different things, and how every time the golden eggs were mentioned there was also an agent called Agent Spark, which that led on to the further developments in the story. So now I'm going to go on to Miranda Rayson's portrayal of Constance Clark. Now, as I said, I previously did really like her in The Last Adventure, and this episode definitely set up her character very, very well. And I think the good thing about the Big Finish characters is there's something a lot different to them compared to that of the new series ones, and if you compare this to an introduction story for a new series companion, they've been done in very different ways. I think that in the new series there's crowbar dialogue in there that is very obvious that it's just there to add a bit of backstory to the character. But what I love about this Big Finish introduction is the way that her character was actually built into the plot in a way, but to the point where it didn't actually affect the plot. The scenario and the scenery of the actual episode sort of did a bit of the plot for us. I think that that gave us a bit of backstory about her character, but it sort of wasn't, it wasn't very obvious. It was a very subtle technique that was used by Matt Fitton. So Constance Clark is basically the leader of the Wrens, which, if you don't know, the Wrens are basically some females who worked in the Bletchley Park area, and they basically cracked codes and things from what the Germans sent out. And basically, it was like breaking the little information that was sent up by the Germans and things, and we wouldn't have won the war without them, really. And I think it is quite a nice little feature, as when we think about World War II, I think that sometimes you just think about the people who fought on the actual front line. I do definitely think that the way that we have the females there, and I definitely think that woman portrayal, I think, is something very interesting, and it's nice to finally have some attention on that as well. And her character, I would actually dare say she stole the show. I think that she may have even performed a little bit higher than Colin in this episode. In a way, this episode is based around her, as it is her introduction. But I think that just her character did carry the role very, very well. I love her accent. I think that fits in very well. I think that that's actually quite similar to Miranda Raison's accent in general. Actually, I was listening to the interview, and that does seem to be what's came across. That she has quite a well-spoken accent, which I think that fits in very well with the idea of her character, I think. There's a scene very early on in the story where we're first introduced to one of Miranda Raison's, Constance Clark, concerns, and that is the whereabouts of her husband. And she basically mentions this quite a lot of times throughout the episode to different people, and she wants to know information about the location of her husband because she's not heard from him for about a year or a year and a half, I think. And yeah, that is a very interesting plot, because once again that is something that relates to the time, and I think that is a very nice little plot that has been added in there. Once again, it didn't contribute to the plot in any way. We didn't see Mr. Clark at any point throughout the episode, but it's still a nice little bit of featuring in there. I do like that reference, as it was subtle and it sort of showed a bit of humanity and humane in her, as even though that she's a strong companion and a strong character in the story, she is still quite a weak character on the inside, because of course family and things make you weak from things like that. I did definitely think that little subtle reference in there worked well, and once again, much like the new series crowbars this information down your throat, and I think the Big Finish definitely worked very well to make the information as subtle as possible. But the other cast were, I'm going to need to read them off the screen because I'm really bad with names. So we have Hugh Fraser, Alistair Petrie, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Paul Thornley. Now, these characters have actually played several different characters throughout the story, which, if you don't know, Big Finish do reuse characters and voices and things, which I didn't notice. If I went into this episode not knowing the cast list, I wouldn't have even been able to notice that the different characters were actually the same people, which I think that just shows how stunning the voice actors actually are. The characters are very important. I think that, well, that actually happens a lot throughout Big Finish. I definitely think because we don't have the visuals there, the companions and the characters definitely follow on the story very, very well. And we have the plot there as well, but then we have different twists and turns in there to make it even more interesting, and having little subplots in places. I do think that at some points I did find myself sort of zoning out in a few places, especially earlier on. I think that a few of the characters were quite hard to grasp of who they actually were, but I still found myself sort of learning the story towards the second two parts of the episode. I think that worked well, but I do think that earlier on I did lose attention in places, which is okay, understandably, because I was trying to get into the story. But then as we sort of got into the episode, and then I could develop the opinions about the characters, I definitely felt as we got that more backstory in there and more of those plots, I found myself learning the characters a little bit more. Moving on to the plot itself, as I said, this is set in Bletchley Park, which, if you don't know, is basically the code cracking thing, where they break the codes that the Germans send, and then they can then know information about locations and things like that. There's basically mass code cracking in this massive place, which I think I'm honestly surprised that it's not been used in Doctor Who in an actual episode on TV before. I do really like is in the episode the Doctor compares it to Logopolis, which I thought was a really nice little reference. He said that even this would put Logopolis to shame, which, if you don't know, that Logopolis is a planet where they all pretty much do maths. It's basically corridors of people that do maths, and much like how they are in this episode in Bletchley, we have tons of females there working their absolute socks off to basically break these codes day in, day out, hour in, hour out, day and night. And I do really like that reference, actually. It's quite a nice little comparison in there, and it just makes it feel like a whole universe. I do love it when the Doctor actually references past places and adventures. Even if you've not watched Logopolis, I think the planet of Logopolis is actually quite an iconic planet for a classic Doctor Who fan. Basically, as I mentioned, we have waveforms, because that is how the codes and things reach them, basically transferred from radio and radio contacts and things, which that is the one way you could honestly screw everything up if that waveform just so happens to be an alien. It is so obvious. Literally, Matt Fitton has took the most practical thing and made it so effective, and I'm just so confused with how this has not happened already. This alien called the Chowdhury, the Doctor constantly refers to them as the waveform as well, just to make it a little bit more simpler, but the Chowdhury is basically this entity that transfers itself throughout the waveforms and things, and basically it kills people to get the energy from that to create a bigger waveform, and then eventually they'll work around a certain amount of the planet and kill a certain amount of people, and then will generally rip the planet apart to gain this energy. Basically, they've homed in on this little golden egg, which which reminds me of a Kinder Egg, but yeah, this little egg thing, they've homed in on that, which I believe is under the ocean, and because they're under the ocean, none of the radio waves can actually get up to the surface, so their main objective is to get above the surface, to break the coding of this thing, and where better to break codes? Bletchley, and they know the codes already, and the Doctor is very, very concerned at this point, and then they turn on everybody and start to kill people. Once again, we have death in Doctor Who, which is lovely, because I think that definitely Big Finish don't shy away from death, which is nice, and once again we have a character that, although you can't see them, and no doubt in the actual episode, if it was a TV story, it would have just been little blobs, a bit like a Rutan in a way, but just sort of spinning energy, no doubt. I think that the general imagination of the user and the viewer, I think that that worked well for this entity, because I think that in the episode it wouldn't have been much of a threat in an actual TV episode. I think that that's once again something that Big Finish does very well. Later on in the episode we have a female character we get to know for quite a while, and we have a bit of developments in there, and then they go to this place with Constance Clark, Sylvia, and they go to basically reference where the golden egg and things is, and then they come across a bomb which leads to a very nice scene in a forest where it's going to blow up, but it turns out it doesn't actually blow up because it's just a bell, which definitely makes a very, very quite an intense ending for part one. But yeah, I like is we actually got to know her character. I would dare actually say we got to know Sylvia's character more and better before we even got to know Constance Clark, which was quite a big surprise to me actually when she actually died. I think it's something, I think that interestingly, when a character gains a lot of dialogue and gains a lot of backstory, they have to be alive. That I think that that's a rule in series when it's televised, that they can't give enough amount of details to a character and enough of a backstory for them then to just be killed off. I think that that's something that's done quite a lot, and we have this character that's then shot and we don't physically care because we don't know anything about them. We don't care about that, but if we learn more about their family, their background and things, we all of a sudden start to care more, which is something that Big Finish did. We actually start to learn about the character, gain a bit of sympathy for her for the amount of work that she actually does, and then she goes and gets killed. I think that that is a perfect way to introduce you to a story. It's a threat once again, and yeah, it's just a perfect idea, I think. It's also revealed that the double agent is in fact a double agent of a double agent, because the double agent is working also for the Chowdhury and the Waveform. It's one of those stereotypical human takes on the side of the alien in order to get power and a leadership, basically. They're using his brain to gain the information, and then once they've gained a certain amount of the waveform information from the whole population of the planet, he's then left over to sort of control the rest of, say, the 10% that they've kept alive, which isn't that much, but he just likes the idea of being a leader and sort of the leader of this new revolution in a way. He's sort of a bit of a dictator in his mind, I think, which once again is a bit of a parallel to that of World War, and I think that that just fits in very well. I think that there's a lot of parallels between having this war, this mini-war, with the Chowdhury and things in the waveform, and then with the Sixth Doctor, and then the actual war is going on at the same time as well. It's like a war within a war, which I think there is a lot of different parallels and things in there, which I do like as well. Now, of course, that is where I'm going to end that bit, because I'm not going to tell you what happens next, because what on earth would be the point in that? Because I'm not going to tell you, because you need to now go and buy it, because I would recommend it. Because, honestly, I think that this episode is a very good beginning episode. If you've been following my channel for a while, you will know that I've just started actually getting into Big Finish over the past few months. I've been very dedicated in the Sixth Doctor, hence this lovely purchase over here, which I'm going to put in screen once again, because I love it to pieces. Best regeneration story ever. But yeah, I think that if you're thinking of getting into Big Finish, like how I was a few months ago, and I've heard that Colin Baker is just so good on Big Finish, this is a perfect place to start, because you have a new companion starting. It is a new era. I don't actually know what happened to Flip. As I said, I don't know if she then just decided to leave or whatever, and I don't want to know either, because I'm no doubt going to go and collect the rest of the Flip episodes in the future, which I'll be very looking forward to going and listening to, because I do love Flip. So far, I've met 3 companions from the Sixth Doctor era, not including the televised ones in the main range, and I've loved every single one of them. Flip, I love. Frobisher, I love. And then we have Miranda Rayson, that I've not known much about yet. I've only watched 2 episodes, and I'm currently on with my 3rd one, and I'm still really liking her character, and I think that she's just something, a breath of fresh air compared to the others. So I think that this episode is definitely somewhere great to start for somebody who's interested in Big Finish, because you have Colin Baker there, and I think it is very easy to pick up from other episodes, because it's just the Sixth Doctor starting afresh with a new companion. And to end off, the final scene of the episode was, of course, the Doctor actually taking Constance Clark with him, which I love, we don't actually know Constance Clark's proper name. I think that that is a very interesting thing, because I did find it quite weird, I think, in End of the Line, where the Doctor refers to her as Constance or Constance Clark. I don't believe we actually know her first name, because she wants to keep it a rather official relationship, as being quite a business style one, and I think that that is just something that she generally is used to, and I think that that works brilliantly, because I think that that's something that the Sixth Doctor is used to as well, in a way, and because we've had Evelyn in the past, which again, she's a very older character that is a lot more established, and I think that that is just something that works a lot better with the Sixth Doctor. I'm actually very interested to see how their relationship continues and how it sort of develops in places, actually, which is something that is an aim. I'm looking forward to the future stories. I'm looking forward to see what happens next in the series, which once again is something that the new series doesn't really deliver to me. I never really, when I see a character, for example, when I seen that new character in The Magician's Apprentice, who was sort of the new unit person, I wasn't at all excited when I found out that she was coming back in the Zygon two-parter. I just didn't feel any enthusiasm behind her. I just think that Big Finish carry that so well and want to make you know more. I think that that's something, because you can't physically see it, everybody's interpretation of the episode is something different, because everybody has a different imagination. I think that that's just generally Big Finish in a nutshell. It's brilliant, and I would highly recommend this episode. So if you'd like to buy this episode, I will leave the link to the actual pre-ordering page in the description. It is out now, it is a fairly recent release, and I would also hopefully recommend the rest of the series as well. So thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a big like, and please subscribe if you're not already. If you have any questions, please do leave them below, and I'll be sure to answer them at some point in the near future. Thanks again for watching, and I shall see you all next time. So yeah, thanks for watching, and bye for now.